What's going on, guys? Sio here with another quick introduction video, I guess. We are officially starting the NES Little Cup Little Tournament this week. I don't know if anybody else calls it that besides me or not, but I thought it was a cute name, so I've been running with it. But basically what this tournament is going to be is a quick 4-week tournament. I don't know if we've actually decided if we're doing playoffs yet. If we're doing playoffs, it'll be like 6 weeks or so. But basically this is going to be a short, like, month-long tournament, basically, where teams got to draft their own Little Cup teams, and we just go against a couple of coaches and see who does best, basically. So this was an interesting thing to set up for, because although we had free drafts where everyone was just allowed to draft basically whatever they wanted, we did actually create a tier system specifically for this. Just because it was a short tournament didn't mean we didn't want it to be a good tournament. And one of the few things that we noticed that we could have improved on from the Eviolite tournament, another off-season league that we were doing for a little while to kind of help us sort out tiers and stuff in the meantime. One of the big issues we had with that was that a lot of Pokemon kind of got over-centralized because we didn't have tiering then. So it was basically just a free-for-all, whatever the fuck you wanted. It was fun in its own way, but it also led to a lot of, like, similar strategies coming out. So at least this way, coaches had to submit their rosters in, like, on their own, and then everyone got to kind of see them all at the same time. And as far as I know, we don't actually allow free agency this thing. I could be wrong, but basically that should allow us to be able to have our roster and hopefully not just be counter-teamed through free agency, basically. So I'll go ahead and get into my team now, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. It has a good type diversity, and I feel like a lot of the Pokemon can do a lot of different things for me, which is obviously something that I really like in leagues, but especially in a tournament that's only like 4 weeks long. I wanted to make sure that I had, like, pretty much Pokemon that I could do 4 different sets for every time. So starting off, obviously, I don't have very many chances to use my mascot, Mudbray, so I'm drafting him. I've already used Mudsdale in the Alola tournament, actually, and I feel like I used it pretty well there. But Mudbray basically does the same thing, but its speed isn't necessarily as hindering as it is to Mudsdale, because speed doesn't really matter that much in Little Cup. I've actually run a Choice Scarf Mudbray before pretty well, because it ends up outspeeding a lot of things you wouldn't expect it to, and then it kind of just ends up being a unique late game cleaner if you can get enough defense boosts up, and then you kind of just, like, don't die, really. It's obviously with stamina over own tempo over inner focus. I don't know why you'd really ever use the other two, because stamina is just a way better ability. Mudbray, sorry, is not exactly the most, like, diverse Pokemon, but it's very, very good at what it does, so, it was one of those Pokemon that I knew I absolutely had to draft this season, even though, there probably are stronger tier 1s overall, but you can't pass up a mascot pick, especially when it's a mascot pick for a Little Cup Pokemon that you're never going to draft anyway. So next up, we have Elekid, who is very, very fast, and basically the exact opposite of Mudbray, in that it's very fast and a special attacker mostly. Its attack is actually, like, identical to its special attack, so I can actually use both, I guess, which is cool. But it has the speed to actually outrun a lot of things in Little Cup, especially after Choice Scarf. It doesn't really have as good of abilities as its older brethren do, I guess, but it has most of the same coverage that it gets. And I think it has a little bit more versatility that can go both physical or special. So we'll definitely use this thing a lot this season. Next up, we actually have my girlfriend's pick for a Pokemon. Since it was a free tier draft, I went ahead and told my girlfriend that she could basically pick anything she wanted, and I would draft a Pokemon, or I would draft a team around it. She wanted Teddiursa, which was a fantastic pick by her, in my opinion. Teddiursa is another Pokemon that's kind of one note, since it's really only used in pickup a lot of the time. I think, or Quick Feet, you can only use pickup in doubles, I think, and Honey Gather's just completely useless. But Quick Feet allows it to basically just hold a Toxic Orb or a Flame Orb if you want to just go full Facade set, I guess. And end up outspeeding and hurting quite a lot of stuff. its coverage is pretty good. It has all the punches, which is cool. It has the stab facade like I was talking about. It has stab return, obviously. Overall, Teddy Ursa, in addition to being really fucking cute, is also pretty fucking good, I think. So I am pretty excited to see how it goes. I don't obviously have a ton of experience with most of these Pokemon, so this isn't going to be like some super in-depth like use every single set that I'm going to be using, because I don't really know what sets I'm going to be using. But I just kind of wanted to highlight the Pokemon that I have on my team, I guess. Next up, we have the return of Natu. I actually drafted Xatu in Season 1, or picked it up in free agency in Season 1. I don't think it ever actually came to a game. I tried really hard to make it come to games, but it just kept being outclassed by some of the other stuff that I had. I love Magic Bounce. Psychic Flying is actually a pretty cool typing, in my opinion. It's not like the best offensive or defensive typing, but it does a little bit more than you would expect it to. This thing's a Baton Passer. It can set up pretty easily, especially Magic Bounce is awesome because, again, it helps prevent it from being like worn down with like toxic and status and stuff. Also acts as a hazard deterror, which I didn't really have before. It's also a hazard remover with defog, but for the most part you kind of just use it for Magic Bounce. It's a little bit cleric also, which is kind of cool. I don't know if I would ever really run it as that, but it does have the potential to do that. And overall, Natu's a tier 3 because it's a little bit better than its bigger brother Xatu. I do think that Natu has a pretty good place on this team. It's also by far the roundest burb, so it has to be. Next up is Poliwag, who I actually think has 3 pretty useful abilities. I mainly drafted it for Water Absorb, but after I drafted it I figured out Damp is pretty useful some weeks, and Swift Swim is definitely useful some weeks. I don't have an automatic rain setter, obviously, because I don't think there is one in Little Cup. But it gets Rain Dance on its own, so if I wanted to I could set it up. Its special move pool is fairly limited, but it's a pure water type, so it at least gets all the stuff the pure water types normally get. And it fills a niche on my team. This was a tier 4, I believe, and I needed a tier 4 water that frankly had Water Absorb. That added benefits of all of the other stuff that it has can kind of come later, I guess, but I just wanted Water Absorb because it kind of matched the team pretty well. More so the second half than the first half, I guess. Also in line with that, I wanted something with Sap Sipper, and I've actually used Go-Goat a couple of times to surprising success, I would say, in like practice games. I don't really frankly know if Skiddo is anywhere near as good as Go-Goat, but I wanted a tier 5 grass type. Go-Goat's stats for Little Cup are actually pretty on par with everything else that's here. And while it's kind of a weirder Pokemon in that it's mostly like a physical grass type, there's not really a lot of physical grass types out there, I guess. It has an interesting move pool. It can set up physically, which makes it a little bit more intimidating. It has Sap Sipper. I guess it's not actually able to set its own grassy terrain, which kind of sucks, but otherwise it actually looks pretty interesting in my opinion. Again, I drafted this mostly for Sap Sipper, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I do think that Skiddo can come a week or two and end up coming in clutch, which is all you can really ask for a tier 5. And I will be right back to get the rest of this. So, alright, going on to my other tier 5. Litwick is kind of slow, even by Little Cup standards, and it doesn't really hit super hard on any side, to be perfectly honest. But as a fire immunity, it's basically Chandelure just in Little Cup, because I'm pretty sure it basically gets all of the same coverage that Chandelure would get. Chandelure is a tier 3 normally, and it's normally slightly too expensive for my taste sometimes, but I wanted to go ahead and give out Litwick a shot, first of all because it's a really cute design, and second of all because I do think that it actually has a place on this team. I needed a ghost type and I needed a fire type, so the two kind of just seem to pair pretty well together in my opinion. I I don't really love drafting solely by typing, I guess I should say. But with Little Cup specifically, like the stats don't really, or like the stat differences don't really matter unless they're like super extreme. So I kind of just went for Pokemon that I liked / was comfortable with this draft, or stuff that I really just wanted to try out for feature sets. Mienfoo is actually one of those, because now we're getting into our free picks. Much like in NES Season 1 and NES Season 2, we had 400 free points to work with. If you're curious about the tiering system, I'll go ahead and link our Little Cup thing down below, and you can go ahead and just check out the tiers from there. But basically we are allowed to draft 4 Pokemon that total up to 400 points, which basically averages out to 4 Tier 3 picks. I went ahead and did a Tier 1, Tier 3, Tier 4, and Tier 5, mostly because I didn't really want Mudbray to be my only Tier 1, if I'm being perfectly honest, but also because I actually think Mienfoo is really fucking good. Like, it has a surprising amount of speed and offense, I guess, on both sides. I say offense on both sides because I actually have seen a special Mienshao work pretty well. And it actually has a pretty good special move pool in my opinion. Like any fighting type that gets Aura Sphere is automatically like pretty decent in my opinion, but especially since it can actually use it fairly well. It gets U-turn and Regenerator, which is really nice. It is just a very good offensive threat overall, as well as an offensive pivot, which I kind of needed. And something that I predicted a lot in this tournament, that I would be seeing at least, is a lot of Ghastlies and Abras. And Mienfoo is actually one of the few fighting types in Little Cup that can like reliably take those things on, in my opinion. It just hits really hard. It also gets Reckless, which is cool if I want to just spam High Jump Kick, just to do a shit ton of damage. Reckless Life Orb High Jump Kick from Mienfoo / Mienshao is pretty hard to switch into. So overall, I'm pretty excited for Mienfoo. It's definitely one of the biggest threats on my team, because it can attack both physically and specially and be pretty fast at doing it. And it's a Baton Passer, which is cool. Next up, Dudley is making his return. I actually did draft Armaldo, Season 1. I think I actually ended up dropping it for Xatu, interestingly enough, but both are on the same team now, because Anorith, in my opinion, is a lot better than Armaldo is. Its speed is like higher than Armaldo's by quite a lot, so it actually allows it to kind of hit things with its nice attack, instead of just kind of sit there, take a hit, and then dish out a bunch of damage. That was kind of my main problem with Armaldo, is that like it takes a hit, and then it hits something back really hard, but then just dies because it's super slow. Anorith doesn't really have that problem as much, because it just kind of outspeeds a lot, especially with the Scarf. And it's more of a physical attacker, but I would say that that difference isn't really big enough for me to care. One of the cool things about Little Cup is you can really use every Pokemon like pretty much to its fullest, unless its stats like super min-maxed or something like that. You could pretty much just get away with running anything physical or special if you just invest it correctly. Anything can also be bulky, fun fact, because everything can run a Eviolite. So it makes it really unpredictable when you're planning. I definitely see myself being able to take advantage of that a little bit, because there's a lot of surprising coverage that this thing gets that you wouldn't really be able to run otherwise. And Battle Armor and Swift Swim are both cool abilities. So overall, and it's Rapid Spinner, which is something that I really needed. Overall, I'm pretty happy with Anorith. There were a couple of other bugs that I was interested in, because there's just a lot of really interesting bugs, I guess, and it's kind of hard to draft bug knowing that, I don't know, I've just always found bug to be a hard type to draft because it's kind of weak to a lot of stuff, but it does have potential. So I wanted to try out Anorith because this is the first bug that I saw that had potential, I guess. Next up is a kind of interesting pick, I guess. There was a part of me that really badly wanted to pick up Zoro again, and basically just continue my Season 2 shenanigans with Zoroark. But I wanted to try my hand at another dark type that I've kind of had my eye on for a while. I believe that Purloin / Slippard are pretty good in leagues and haven't really been used that much yet. Limber, Unburden, and Prankster are all pretty decent abilities. Obviously Prankster's the best one of them, but Unburden's pretty good too, and Limber could be used decently well as a pivot some weeks, because while this thing's not super bulky, again, Little Cup, you can kind of make anything bulky if you really wanted it to. This thing has a really good support move pool, and actually a lot of interesting ways to use Pursuit or Prankster that a lot of other Pokemon can't. Like it's not the only like Prankster status user, but it does get a lot of kind of surprising moves, like Assist would be under Prankster, like all of these like Copycats under Prankster. All of these things you wouldn't really expect to be like given a Prankster boost because they're not really seen that often, I guess. Purloin actually has access to, which is kind of cool. It's weaker, I guess, on both sides, but you can cover up for that, I guess, if you really want to. It does get Foul Play too, so if you want to just go full defensive and just use Foul Play for your opponent's attacks, you can do that too. So overall, I think Purloin's going to fit pretty well. I also wanted a kitty on my team, if I'm being perfectly honest, so I got one. Finally, we have the fairy, I guess, of the team. Honestly, I wasn't really super thrilled by too many of the fairies in Little Cup, but I also wasn't really super thrilled by most of the dragons in Little Cup. I don't know if people are gonna get a bunch of dragons, but from my experience, baby versions of dragons actually aren't that good. Maybe it's a little bit different and competitive when you don't have to wait like fucking forever for every single move to be learned. But I've always just kind of been underwhelmed by dragons in Little Cup whenever I've used them. So I didn't really prioritize having a bomb-ass fairy type as much as some other people could do. But I do actually believe that Mime Jr. has a place on the team. I'm not trying to disparage him that much because Soundproof, Filter, and Technician are all pretty useful abilities. And while everything on the physical side is not very good, Special and Speed are actually fairly decent in my opinion. This will be a harder Pokemon to use bulky, but it's aided a little bit by Filter, so I can actually take a hit or two if I need to. This thing's special move pool is very good. It doesn't really have a fairy type attack to hit with, which is kind of interesting despite the fact that it's a fairy type, but the rest of its move pool is really good. And I'm never going to be using it physically, so it's one of the few Pokemon that I just can't use physically. It has like 25 attack or something. Even if I wanted to, there's not really a whole lot I can use with it unless I wanted to go like a super gimmicky Technician set. But overall, I actually do think Mime Jr. can come a couple of weeks and do what it's supposed to do. It's a tier 5, so obviously it's not going to be like something I bring every single week and like blow the league back with or something. But I do think it has a place overall on my team, and I'm pretty excited to use it. So that is my super quick draft team recap, I guess, of the NES Little Cup tournament. Week 1 will be starting really soon, because spoilers, I've already had the battle. So I'm going to try to basically finish up all of the NES Season 2 stuff, which should hopefully all be up by the time this video's up anyway. But spoilers, I'm still working on it because I've had like no time to record lately. So all that should be up, and then this will go up, and then honestly the Little Cup battle will probably go up the day after that because it's already rendered and stuff, so I don't have to wait on it, thankfully. But thank you guys, have a good day. Drop a like and subscribe if you're interested. Please leave any sets for Pokemon that you want to check out. And yeah, have a good one.